When I woke up out of a coma, the first thing I learned was I had a 1% chance of saving my leg from amputation. And in that moment, they were talking, all I heard was 1% chance. And that showed me I had a chance.
Yeah.
And that was my glimmer of hope that I hung on to. And it got me through 34 surgeries in total. But who's counting? I cannot write a book about joy if I don't spark some joy in my life. I really encourage people listening to think about what brings them joy. It can change your whole entire day, even if you take a 5-minute break, 5 minutes, and go outside, get some sun, take your shoes off, walk through the yard, or just, take a walk around the block. Go to Dr. Wiss, and I was like, hey, thank you for doing 34 surgeries to save my leg, but it's giving me too much pain. I need to move on with my life, and we need to just go ahead and cut it off. He goes, we can't do that.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Flipping the Lid. You know what we do here by now, but today is a little bit different. See, it was an off-site location, single camera, and we had to adjust on the fly just to ensure that we could even capture the conversation. So I'm doing the introduction late, but that in no way has anything to do with the quality of this interview. This is actually one of my favorite human beings. And when we look at some of the most impactful and influential people, she is one of them. There's a deep resonance to our shared stories. In my shared experience, particularly with a detached limb and what that actually does. The relationship with pain, the journey to overcome elements of identity, and ultimately, how do we channel that pain into purpose? But also, how do we tap into, find the deepest levels of joy? This woman today is a mother. She is a wife. She is a force to be reckoned with. And she is someone who's elevating and empowering a whole group and generation of women to be able to step into their voices and be able to share them with purpose to create a ripple effect of impact. She lives every single moment in congruence with who she is and brings love, light, energy, warmth, and depth all into every interaction that she has. So we're going to jump in right into the middle of the start of a conversation, and you'll see where the conversation progresses from here. But Amberly Lago, I love you, and it's a pure blessing to have you on my show and to have you in my life. For the rest of you, enjoy this episode. I promise you, you will get benefit out of this. We laughed, we loved, we cried, we laughed until we cried until we laughed, and it was a beautiful synergy. I hope you'll take a lot from it.
Actually, it was 2.5 days. And then I was like, no, if I'm doing a 1-day event, VIP night, 1 day.
And that's what this one is, isn't it?
And then a brunch. That's
what this one is in April. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think for the style of event, like at a center like that's not like a retreat style event.
Yeah.
I love that kind of format. A full day, maybe 2, but that's only if there's like purpose and structure behind it all.
Yeah.
Because I mean, even the math shows and like all the science shows, like the retention amounts are so little when you're just drinking from a fire hose for days.
Yeah.
And again, that's no criticism on the events that are big. It's just, it's like
a lot.
And to run them is a huge investment.
Oh, so, if my event is 150,000, I can't imagine what this one is with all the speakers that she has. Yeah. Now, some of the speakers she's not paying, some she is, but I just had to change something with my event. I had one of the speakers last minute go, oh, and by the way, here's an invoice. And I'm like, oh, what's this? No, I didn't say per diem. I was like, I'm feeding you. Yeah. And I was like, why did you book a hotel for $1,200 a night when I'm providing you a suite in a hotel? Right. And I was like, I can have someone pick you up from the airport. You don't need to rent a car for $450. Yeah. And, for me to have to pay for parking and all that. And I was just like.
So, but those were the decisions I made when I was in Atlanta because I knew they were in a tight budget and I knew already what expenses were being covered. And that's how I operate, like for the event. If it's something above and beyond, like, what they provide or outside of what they may provide, like
in
provide
a contract though.
But I know that's what I'm saying. I understand completely. My point is like you and I accommodate to the event, not expect the event to pick up whatever we want. Right. The point is if I'm working for them, part of that is helping their team be successful up to and including how they do expense management.
Like I waited for an hour and a half from the time I landed before we got the Uber because they waited for 2 more people. So like the car was 5 or 6 people. I could have Ubered there, had 2 hours, right? Like, but it would have been more expense and I knew how lean they were running. So it's like, my point is not all speakers take that stuff into account. It's about them and like, it's a privilege.
And making it easier for the event 100%. Planner.
That's the whole point. That's exactly what I mean. Like, I don't want to be.
That's why you get hired back. And that's why you get more speaking gigs because
we're easy to work with.
Easy to work with. Like when I did Herbalife, the guy said, in 20 years, you are the nicest and easiest speaker that I've ever worked with.
Yeah, that's huge.
And I was just like, well, that's my part of my job. I want to make this easy.
What's funny is I haven't even started the podcast, but this is amazing content and a great conversation. And that's completely fine with me. But
I don't know if we should say that about the other speaker.
No, but
they're if they say they're going to know.
But here's the thing. They do know. It's still a choice. Like it's how you choose to greet the barista at Starbucks. It's how you choose to treat your Uber driver. It's how you choose to treat the person that, you know, takes care of you at a restaurant. Like it's not, we do know. We do know.
Yeah.
There's choices that people make that prioritize themselves over what's good for like the environments that we're in. And there's a big difference between being accommodating and giving and like working with people versus like not able to set a boundary. Like if something's not appropriate, I'll tell somebody that, right? Like I'll be direct to advocate before the contract is signed, right?
But it needs like if a lot of expectations are needed, that has to be said right away up front. And I mean, I think that it's part of my job and how I operate.
We're getting hired to do.
That's why I'm speaking at this event. This is my like 5th event that I've done with her. And it's because I'm here to support.
And you're here to invest in what she's doing. And it expresses gratitude. And like, and again, like there's an element of like, at some point you often will acquire to a relationship where then again, they see the bigger picture. But like a lot of speakers come in, come out. They don't ingrain themselves in the event wherever and however they can. I would suggest that a lot of them don't put as much intention into preparing to craft talks for certain teams, meaning they don't have pre-talk interviews to better understand the audience and like what they're trying to accomplish in a mission. And sometimes there's no need for that. Like in a certain event, it's like, well, here's what we want you to talk on. And it's like, you've got complete freedom, go for it. But at the same time, like even asking a handful of questions around who's going to be in the audience, like what's the overall theme of the event? Like what's the intention tying together the whole broader message? Like where do I fit within the picture, right? What's the message you want to land and know that if I hit that, we nailed it. Like even 3 to 5 questions just to get a little more clarity so you can put intention. Like the amount of times, so I go through typically a full hour interview like with a team after they've hired us that is just for crafting the talk. So I understand the audience and the messaging because I don't have to customize a whole talk for them. What I have the ability to do is to make my examples relevant, to tie in pieces that they identify with, use language that their teams are using.
Well, that's right. Why I always ask, what do you call, like when I've worked with different big like corporations, who are the people? I always ask, who's in the audience? What is their biggest challenge or their pain point right now? I ask those questions because, and also if you're talking to like, a network marketing company, what do they like to be called? If I'm talking to a mortgage industry, what do they like to be called?
100%.
So you speak their language and they're going to be able to relate to you more. And I think it's, a lot of corporate companies do that more. Like when I worked with Google, Herbalife, just worked for a big construction company. And then also I'm doing a talk for the Catholic Church.
Oh, cool.
The interview process for that was insane.
I'll bet. Yeah.
I mean, I had to be approved by the bishop.
So
the interview process was like, they were asking me all kinds of questions. And then one of the event that I did last week in Minneapolis, I had like 5 phone calls and my slides had to be approved. They needed an outline. They needed, it was like, oh wow, totally different from like a self-development talk.
Right. And there's even some bigger events that are now having speakers like submit their talk ahead of time, not even, and it's interesting because it's like, that's not, I don't fit that box. I don't try to fit that box. Right. Like that, those are hurdles and hoops that are about control that take the brilliance away from the speakers.
Well, I just had a conversation about that. And I was like, well, that's not what I typically do. I was like, here's an outline.
Right.
I said, but I'm going to go based on what I feel from your audience.
100%. And like, I mean, even just the last one, I will always ask the tech questions, right? Like, when do you want slides prepared? But I always tell them, whatever I give you is going to be a complete placeholder. Because I may use the slides, I may not use the slides. And the reality of it is like, I know my process, typically 72 hours before the event, like I start getting downloads on what needs to be said. Like I start feeling it out. I reflect on the notes. That's a part of my like process, is not to sit and write what my talk is going to be, but to
so much alike.
I know in so many ways.
So much alike, because it's like 72 hours. That's what I do too.
It's like literally when I start feeling it out. And that's when I could, and this is where I had talked to you before about the difference between anxiety and anticipation. They show up in the body the same way. I used to like carry it as stress. Like I've got to nail this talk. I've got to do this. And now I'm like, I do hot seats and I completely am in surrender mode, right? Like if I can do hot seats,
but see,
I can speak, right? Like, and
I love Q&A.
Right, because you're getting to engage and connect at a different level. Mm-hmm. You're somebody, and I know that I am as well, that we don't fit the trained speaker model.
Yeah.
Right? Like we connect with people because of how we make ourselves accessible, which is the whole concept of even making the event better, right? Like part of the customer journey is being accessible and accommodating to the team to make sure that what they're trying to accomplish and our specific job helps fulfill that role, right? Like it's to make sure that any questions or concerns that they can answer. But like that, so yeah, 72 hours out though, and I tell everybody, I'm like, I could literally be changing the talk until 5 minutes before I get up there in my head, or even in whatever notes I have.
And I will know how I'm going to open based on what city I'm in, who I'm speaking to. I will know how I'm going to close. And then I would say 95% of the time I get up there and my close is completely different.
Yeah. I would tell you, I start every talk with, and I learned this from one of my friends. I haven't talked to him in a little while, but I think I spoke at 4 or 5 of his events, George Bryant. What was I completely lost my train of thought. What was I just going to say?
He shared something with you, how you open
he, in one of my talks that he watched, and then I watched him go up on stage after, and he deployed this real time. He said, every single time I get up on stage, he said, I start my talk with 60 seconds of truth. Because here's what I know. All of my anticipation is until the first few sentences are talked.
That's why I always like to have my open. That's the only thing I memorize, because it takes a few seconds to get like to get in flow.
So, but what I do is I now lean on 60 seconds of truth.
So give me an example.
So an example of that, like with Atlanta, right? I literally started by saying, look, guys, I said, my whole rhythm is out. I said, I got a bug earlier this week that I thought was going to take me down. And instead it just ended up being like allergies. But like my rest and recovery was off. I made I broke down like what led into the event. And I said, and there's like some chaos going on at home right now. And I said, but I'm here with you. And I said, and I'm going to be as raw and as real as I possibly can be. But like, it's interesting how much like my old narratives would have caused me to like be hesitant or hold back in different energy. And I just wanted you guys to know where I'm at right now, because I'm going to deliver from where I'm at right now. And and I just like own it, and whatever comes out, but I try to contain it to 60 seconds. I try to make sure that there's purpose in what I'm saying. I'm not just like babbling. Yeah. Right. But it is often around like a way that I can relate or connect with somebody. Right. Like I had said
it allows them to drop their guard.
100%. And like at the last talk, I was able to say like, wow, like it's interesting. My daughter's 10, and had she done this when she was 5, I don't think I would have even hesitated. But she asked me if I'd take one of her stuffed animals with me on the road. And I was literally out the door, and all I've thought about since I left is, why didn't I just grab the stuffed animal?
Oh.
Right. Because it wasn't, but like she's never asked. It didn't really even register. And then afterwards, and so I shared that from stage. I was like,
because we've all felt that.
right. And it's like, or I'll say, man, my son just had like a really awesome day at school the end of last week. And then he got rocked the day after. And sometimes those swings, like because of what I have to do to help emotionally regulate and help him move through, really affect me. Because I know how much he struggles with it and it weighs on me. And so if any of that energy comes out today, I just want you guys to know it's because my heart is at home, even though I'm here with you today. Right? Like I just try to ground it in truth.
Yeah.
That's literally the concept, 60 seconds of truth. And then you can transition into whatever.
And that's good because I relate more when somebody is just real, authentic. No, and that's, I think, one of the reasons like we really connected deeply is because it's like, I feel like I see you all the time. I mean, seriously, I feel like I see you more than a lot of people that I see. And I consider you like,
that's cool.
Yeah, I love it. But even when I haven't seen you in a while, we are so connected that it doesn't even matter. Like I see you and it's like, we haven't skipped a beat, you know, but I think it's because we can be open. We can be honest with one another. You get what you see. There's no ulterior motive. It's like,
but there's also enough trust too that like, I mean, and I say this not to like call you out or say anything negative about it, but it's like, there've been a couple of moments where like you were in the rhythm of like what you were caught up in the beginning of a conversation. It wasn't that you weren't real. You were like really honest. And I was just like, Amberly, like stop with this, like, let's get real. And you're like, okay, fuck. Like we can receive that. Right. Yeah. And it's like, we get into these patterns that are so easy to like, it's not that it's a performance. It's just that we're not conditioned to believe that we can be that way with everybody all the time, especially one-on-one. And when we do it on stage or how we do it on stage or in a group of people, right? Like I watched you lead a mastermind. You are so accessible. You're so real. You're so relatable. You're so encouraging, right? But you also are grounded in understanding. And so like but it's just obvious how you move in a room, right? I think one-on-one sometimes, even though it's sometimes like the place you can get the deepest, most people aren't conditioned that way. Think about how often you start any conversation with anybody and it's like right down to business, right? It's like, and to me, the indication of somebody that I want in my life, even if business is a potential, if there's somebody that I want in my life, either for influence or friendship or even business, I don't want to start at the business side. Mm-hmm. Because if it makes sense, we'll discover that pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And talking about life and kids and challenges in nervous system regulation as an entrepreneur and like sleep and health journeys and like all that shit.
You and I got into like the health stuff right away and realized we had so much in common.
Well, the level of pain in our stories. I mean, it's crazy. So,
and I mean, even like, you know, I don't think I've even told you this because I haven't really talked about it, but I'm supposed to have another surgery. They wanted to do it right away.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And, they've been wanting to do it and another doctor really wanted to do it. And I was like, screw that. I am not having that surgery. I'm finding another doctor. You know, I do not went to another doctor and they suggested it. And I was like, oh, not doing it. So they're finally like, this last year was like the craziest year for my health. I mean, harder than I've had in years. It was like as intense as right after my motorcycle accident. It was bad. And my husband's been worried and he's like, I think you need to think about surgery. And so talked to the doctor. He's like, well, yeah, there's been a lot of improvements on this since you've done this surgery last time. And it's basically I'm sorry we got on this topic, but.
By the way, don't apologize. I'm like good. And here's what I'm already knowing I'm going to do. I'm going to film an intro on this thing later. Let's just keep rolling. It's a great conversation. We're going to explore. We're going to tell some of your story. We're going to cover shit, but like,
just raw. I forgot we're doing a podcast.
If you're comfortable with doing, but no, that's my point. Like, don't apologize for the direction of the conversation. Like that's to the whole point you were just making. The reason we can connect is because we're also not like attached to a path. Mm-hmm. Right. So it's like, I'm hearing a friend processing all the shit that's going on that I know creates resistance and interference. Yeah, and it's also highly relatable. Right. And so it's
because
really relevant if you're willing to go there.
Off our feet.
I know.
It's like, sometimes life brings us higher than we ever imagined. And then it's like, oh yeah, but really, I'm going to knock you on your ass for a while, because it's like, woo, it's exciting. I've got this book launch. I've doing all these amazing events that I'm so blessed I get to travel. And it's like, seriously, I honestly still pinch myself that I'm like, I get to do this. Like, they really want me here to speak. Yep. Like, I'm like,
I do too.
I can't believe they actually want, they're hiring me as their keynote. Like,
and yet I can also own how good I am at what I do, as can you. But it still is one of those things where I'm like, it is shock. It's shock. It's like, they're like, why do they want to listen to me?
Oh,
when you say I'm one of your favorite people even to talk to, I'm like, that's what I asked you earlier. I was like, why?
Yeah.
Like, and not like,
I was like,
I receive it, and I've received that from you in the past, but I was like, finally, like, I'm like, why? Because
you asked why.
I just was curious.
Like, really? Like, it's because of everything that we can talk about and be real. Yeah. And whether it's our health stuff, our business stuff. I mean, I was even asking, I think it was before we started recording, I said, please tell me this happens to you too. Yeah. And you're like, totally happens to 100%. Me, where I get off and I don't know, I'm at a city. Am I in the right city? Because when you're traveling
completely,
nonstop,
you get disoriented.
Yeah, you get, it's like, what city am I in? What airport? Am I home? But yeah, it's like, I'm excited about these events, the book launch, that it's like that, energy and everything that's built up and built up and built up. And this book is like the amount of hours that I poured into it, and it's like raw and real. And I'm like, got that done. It's like, oh yeah, I got to do the marketing and do that. And behind the scenes planning my next event. And it's all like exciting. And then to find out, oh yeah, we're going to implant some metal leads into your back. And then we're going to put a battery pack that it will attach to into your butt cheek. And then you'll have a thing where it operates. And I'm like, oh, so I'll really be like the bionic woman then, because I'm made from metal. I had to go through, I scare people going through TSA because my leg's all metal. So they made me go through the X-ray 3 times. And I said, it's my leg. No, nothing's there. It's inside the metal all the way down to my toes. And they start, well, we're going to have to pat you down. I'm like, okay, I'm warning you, it's deformed. So it's going to feel weird. And they kind of back, what is that? You know? So to find out that I'm going to have, now they're going to see on the X-ray machine, what is this machine in your back pocket? Yeah, and I'm going to be like, no, it's in my butt cheek.
Yeah, you can't even access it.
You know what I mean?
I do. I set off detectors too, and it's not all of them, but often it's like here, and then it's up in the, and they're like, well, it's in your shoulder. I was like, yeah, I've got metal all in my arm and shoulder. And they're like, well, it doesn't look like that. I don't like,
you know what? You take it off and flex.
But like literally though, like there's a huge level of freedom. I mean, I used to wear dress shirts and sport coats. You rarely see me dressed up that way anymore. I don't want to. That's not who I am. That's not how I show up on stage. This is me almost everywhere I go, always. And if I need to dress up a little bit, I will. But like when I would travel for business, right? And I was still wrapped up in ego and shame and all these things as well. Like I'd have like a sport coat and then I'd have a dress shirt before they could like validate it. And now most of the time I'm in a short sleeve and I'm just like, do you want me to show you? And like, I don't know what to, what do you want me to say?
Yeah.
and
don't you just love your arm though?
Look
at how gorgeous. Isn't it so cool? Do you look?
You're gonna like make me emotional, dude.
I mean, but do you look at it and go, wow, it's so beautiful? Like
I had not ever looked at it like that until probably 2 years ago.
Really?
It was not through disgust. Like I wasn't like upset. I didn't hide it. I didn't see the beauty in it.
It's beautiful.
I was grateful for the function. I'm grateful for all of the things, but yeah, I hadn't seen the beauty in it.
Like
and I'm learning to still.
Wow. It's so
Thank you.
I mean,
dude, same thing about you though. Like I see you dancing and like creating these videos where you're like moving around. I know the pain you're in. I know like the challenges that you still have in your leg and your foot and your ankle. We've talked about that stuff.
Yeah.
And yet like you're still up there moving, right? You're telling your story. You're consistently like being that like beacon of light to show others what can be. While I also know that there are days that you're doing that and you're dying inside.
Yeah, there's been one event that I spoke at and I was in so much pain. I don't know why I was flared up so bad, but also I think it was the altitude. I was in Utah and it was the different altitude. It was super dry. And I was in so much pain that it was making me a little nauseated. And so I pulled it off and I did my keynote, but it was the first time I've ever been on stage that I got on stage and I took Brooke, who I'm here for speaking at her event. She came to support me at this event. That she's so sweet. And we took a selfie together. And other people might not be able to tell, but I can see my eyes look glossed over because I was in so much pain. And it was the first time I got on stage, because usually when I'm on stage, I feel no pain.
Yeah, me too. We've talked about that as well. Yeah.
And I didn't necessarily feel pain, but I felt a little disconnected. And my mouth got super dry, like the desert. That's never happened before. And I'm on stage, and you know what? Talk about 60 seconds of truth. I think it really broke any barrier that anybody may have had up, any walls. And they were like, oh, she's human. Because I was just like, I got to keep it real. I'm the kind of person, I got to keep it real. And so I'm on stage and I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, y'all, I knew I was nervous. But I didn't know I was this nervous to come talk to y'all. And my mouth is like the desert. I was like, can I have some water?
Yeah.
And somebody from the front row came up and gave me some water.
It's relatable. Like it's real. Yes.
And I set that water on the end of the stage. There was no podium or anything. I set it on this. And so I started talking. And even in the middle of the talk, I was like, okay, can I keep it real with y'all? I got to tell you something. And they were so like, but it was hard. And afterwards, I usually stay at the event. I went to my room and I was worried I wasn't going to be able to fly home because I was in so much pain and I started throwing up and I couldn't stop throwing up. And I had shame a little because I was like, you didn't do good enough. Yep. You weren't on enough. And in fact, I actually called Brooke later and I was like, Brooke, I need you. I mean, she's one of my best friends in the world. And I was like, I need you to be honest and real with me. I was like, could you tell that I was in pain on stage? Was it okay? And she's like, yeah. And it's good when you have those friends. And that's one of the things I love about you is that as a friend, you give it to me straight. I can ask you anything. And whether I'm going to like it or not, that's you give it to me straight.
I'm happy you're saying that because I'm going to give you something straight right now.
Well, and one more thing.
Go.
Do you know I can never say the word should anymore without thinking of you?
See? I'm taking up some real estate in your brain. That's
you
good.
Are. If I catch myself saying that, but even in a text.
Isn't it insane how much it happens if you're not aware of? Like, it's crazy.
I would be typing in a text. I'm like, no, can't use that word.
I love that.
So you're in my head.
Good. So
I just want you to know I listen to you.
Here's where I want to be straight with you and challenge you even more.
Okay. Oh, and I booked a job from that gig.
Of course you did. I want you to envision something different though.
Okay.
Your story is pain to purpose to joy. You literally talk about your pain. You talk about your journey, the fact that it flares up. You write about it. You talk about it. Why would it be any different to just say, you guys are going to learn a lot about my story today? And as I take the stage, I just want to let you know that I'm actually having a little bit of a flare up today. Part of my story is pain to purpose. Pain in a way that I don't want to attach my identity, but I have to face on sometimes a day-to-day basis, even when I'm being paid to come up and do a job. Yeah. Sometimes it feels like I have to mask it and perform, but at the same time, like it's a reality of who I am and the cycles that I go through. And that's no different than what I'm going to teach you guys today and how to navigate your own journey.
Okay, I'm going to take that snippet and...
Do you see what I'm saying though?
Yeah.
It's 60 seconds of truth. It's you masked your dry mouth, which had nothing to do with having a dry mouth and being nervous. You told them you were nervous. Yeah. Now, by the way, no shame in the fact that that's what you did. That's okay. You have every right and permission to say that, protect that, not share that. But what I'm trying to challenge you is like, until you fully embody and embrace the fact that your pain is you, it is your story, it is your message, it's also a block in your relationship with the pain because you're still trying to hide it or act like it's not there.
Well, yeah, because, and that is true, but the reason being is, one of the reasons anyway. Well, there's a lot. It goes deep.
Yeah, I know.
It goes deep.
I understand it. I mean, I understand it.
I know you do, but it goes deep in that, you know, my whole life I was taught, suck it up, cowgirl up, hide your crazy, be a lady. Like, you have to be brave. Right. You're the strong one in the family. You're the glue. You're the, you know what I mean? And also too, it's like I have accepted a lot. I was in denial about it for a long time, and that led me down a road.
A lot of roads. Yeah, that's
I hit rock bottom. That worked until it didn't. Until I had to face like, okay, these are the cards I've been dealt, and it's up to me to move forward. Now I know that I'm in the driver's seat, and I know what I got to deal with. Now it's up to me to, you know, what I'm going to do with it. And so, but there's also a part where I'm like, I don't want to acknowledge the pain. And that's what gets me in trouble because, I mean, look, I even was trying to ignore passing a kidney stone. And I remember my back was hurting. Kidney stones aren't fun. And I went to the gym. And my friend Mike Jones, this big buff guy, was like, hey, you got any Bengay, Tiger Balm, anything like that? He's like, yeah, rubbed some on my back, wrapped it, and worked out passing the kidney stone. The next day, didn't do anything about it. The next day, I was hired to do a motivational talk. I was like, it hurt bad, but this was my thinking. Well, my back hurts so bad that my leg doesn't hurt and I can walk without a limp.
I understand at a deep level. And so that's the only reason I'm reflecting that piece back, because it's, again, the unavoidable precursor to change is acceptance. And until you like fully just accept and own that it is your story, it's a part of who you are, it's what you teach, right? Like the more you step into that, which is what you do and why you're so accessible. But again, even owning it on that piece, like I'm in a lot of pain today. But you know what? I've learned that like pain isn't going to keep me stuck. Pain's going to give me the perspective to keep moving forward. It to be in a position of gratitude, to even be standing and walking today when I was told that would never happen. It moves me to even believe that you guys would want to hear my story, or that I'm going to be in a position to be able to help you through mine. Like that's a different open, right? Like again, all I'm suggesting is my relationship with pain has evolved significantly. You know, I'm going on 23 months with zero physical pain after 31 years of daily pain. I had a week before Christmas last year that the pain came back for the first time in 22 months. Not like soreness, not like I slept funny, like full body inflammation on like high alert, like insane amounts of pain.
And I know what that does to you, for me anyway, what it can do to you mentally.
Correct. Here's the reality though. It hadn't happened in 22 months. It took me 6 months to believe that the pain wasn't going to come back. Right? 22 months, I now have an experience. And the difference in it is I didn't react to the pain. I wasn't worried about it. I wasn't sitting in a place where I didn't believe it would not pass. I wasn't like, oh, it's back. I got 22 months and now I'm going to be in pain forever, right? Like I didn't allow like any of that reaction and narrative to take place. It was like, okay, I was on a path and a purpose, which was elimination of activities, of like things I was taking, supplements, of like, I mean, it was 2 to 3 hours a day of routine to get myself moving. It was handfuls of pills every day, and like taking turmeric and mushrooms and like everything to just like do anything I could.
I was taking 73 homeopathic pills a day at one time and 11 prescription medications. I
believe you, and I've been in those same categories, right?
Know you have.
So my goal was to see what is the baseline. I reached the baseline. I know what's needed. There was 1 or 2 things that it pointed me towards pretty quickly. There was some historical pain that truly was cellular memory coming up in in a cycle. You know how pain will reoccur in certain periods of the year, like, you know, in windows of time where it brings a resonance back. It was connected to things that were very clear. But again, I was able to I had emotion to it a little bit, but I didn't get angry about it. I wasn't frustrated about it. I wasn't afraid of it. My wife was like really gracious, and she poured some love into a couple areas that she's like, hey, like, this is an area I want you to pay attention right now. Cool. Okay. Like, didn't get defensive about that. Like, I got it, dear. I was like, okay, like she's my partner. I don't have to react to that. Like, there's no judgment that I'm doing or not doing enough. I had to also accept, like, this is what I was trying to accomplish. Like, when will the pain return? And what's the baseline I need to operate from? And I worked through a lot of those things. I made the adjustments in like my life, like real time that week. And a week later, the pain went away. And I haven't had it since.
And I always think to myself, now I'm like, if the pain comes back with a vengeance, I'm like, well, I know that I've gotten at a much lower level, so I know I can get there again. And a few days ago, I was in Minneapolis, and it was a similar thing where I was starting to feel better. And I mean, my husband worries about me. He's like, I don't want you to crash. My
wife does the same thing. Everybody, like,
they see when we have been in a lot of pain. And even my assistant, who I love her, she is amazing. Finally, I have a great assistant. And she was texting me last night, checking to make sure I got here okay. Texting me this morning, hey, remember to take breaks during the day at the event because you start to get, it starts to get intensify late at night. So take break. Like, I'm like, I love that. But
my wife jokes that I need a handler. And she like will send people on teams, and she'll be like, I want you to protect Brian from this. Make sure that he eats, make sure that he drinks water. He'll lose perspective of time. Like,
yeah. Do you know Johnny, what Johnny said, for this event? He was getting worried. He said, oh, well, John and Catherine Gordon will be there. I know they got you.
And again,
because they know.
And if they know there's somebody there that sees it, who understands it, who will show up for you, then
like, he knows they like, or best friends that they're going to look after me. He knows amazing. He's like, okay, no, John and Catherine, I don't have to worry. They got you.
Right.
And you know, like Mama Bear's got me. But when I was in Minneapolis a few days ago, I get off the plane. It was kind of a crazy day. I had a full schedule, like literally finished, shut my laptop, ran out, got the Uber, got there, got to Minneapolis, got to the hotel, and I looked down and I'm like, well, yep, it's flared up pretty good, and getting ready for bed. And I'm like, one of my legs is purple and the other one's normal color. And when it gets really flared up, my leg's a different color, different temperature, different color. And you know what? I looked at it with complete surrender. And I really thought, well, it is what it is. And
you adjust.
And I'll just adjust. So what can I do?
Right.
Make sure I eat. Go to bed.
Yep.
And I was in the hotel that was connected to the largest mall in America.
Yeah.
I was like, these ladies got in the elevator with all their bags and food. And I'm like, nope, I'm going to go to my room. I mean, it'd be cool to say I'm not that big into malls, but I was like, I know what my priorities are. Mm-hmm. I know the tools that I can use mindset wise, spiritually, physically, mentally, in every way. So I know that I'm going to get better and I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I have this trust and I have this faith that I've been through some hard shit. I can get through this.
Of course you can.
You know?
Of course you can.
So everything you share, I'm like, I so relate.
I know you do. And I think that's the piece that I want to continue to remind you and challenge you on as well is you also can reach a place where there's no pain.
And you've been saying that, and that's my
hope. I believe that, right? And is it going to happen overnight? Is it going to happen just because you decide? No. It's other pieces that will continue to evolve and progress. Mm-hmm. But like, just like when they didn't believe you'd walk, you're not walking, you're tap dancing again.
That's right.
Right? And so like if I listened to even a fraction of all the things I was told I wouldn't be able to do, I would have done nothing.
Oh, I was told that I would never work again, be wheelchair bound.
And so if all of that is possible, even with the diagnosis that you have around your pain, it's a diagnosis, not a permanence. Right. And so just akin to, that's where I want to challenge you, because I didn't ever believe I'd live without pain. And it took me 6 months after I was out of it to believe that that was real and that it wasn't going to come back.
So I've had several kinds of treatments, but one of them, when I first started doing spinal blocks, and they use an X-ray machine, they go in and they would basically put, for lack of a better term, it's like putting Novocaine on a tooth before you get a filling, or in your gums before a filling. And so some people have great results with nerve blocks or spinal nerve blocks. And I remember afterwards, I was like, oh my God, it's a miracle.
Yeah.
First time I have no pain. Like, oh my gosh. And I would be on top of the world, and then walking through the grocery store, same day, like it's an outpatient thing. So same day, and all of a sudden the pain's coming on back.
Right.
And at first it would send me crashing down. I would be like up here and I'd be like, oh, I'm shattered again. I'd be up here, shattered again. And I've learned so much through that experience that's part of life, whether you're dealing with pain or whatever. If it was all linear, if there were no ups and downs, we wouldn't be able to appreciate the joy and the good things in life. So when I have low moments, I go back to the experiences I've had where I have overcome something, or I have accomplished something, or I have gotten out of some sort of pain. And that not only gives me hope, but it allows me to stay positive in the situation.
Right. And that's how you choose and live your life so often. That's how you get to shine the light that you do. Right. And so I see all of that, know all of that to be true, see it, witness it, experience it. And that's the other piece that I'm trying to shift perspective, is it's like, it took 6 months before I believed it. Right. And so take the moments you can get and keep looking for progress. But like, you could, if you stay on the paths that you're on, keep going deeper, you could get to a place where you don't experience pain for 6 months at a time. Right. And then you're adjusting to that. Right. And that's like, that's what I just want to make sure you stay focused on, because you get it. You are capable of it. You deserve it. And I believe that it's possible. Could you bring us into your story? The one that we've been referencing around a whole lot of pain. Like, honestly, again, because we are recording and I'm gonna use all this for the podcast. What I would love is for you to just kind of take us back to what was going on in your life at the time, right? Like where you were at, what you were doing, like at a high level, and then take us into your story and let us know what happened. And then we'll kind of jump in and pick up a little bit from there.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. When I go back to that moment, I had worked so hard and for so long, and I was at a place where I thought, wow, my career is like booming. And I was in the fitness industry, and I was doing fitness videos, and it was wild to go to any CVS or Walgreens, because the vitamin labels, there would be a picture of me on vitamin labels. I mean, it was insane. I was like sponsored by Nike. I was regularly contributing to Shape and Fit Magazine and Fit Pregnancy and Health Magazine. And they would call me and ask me, can you give us some exercises for this? Can you give us a tip of the week for exercise? So I loved it. I was such a nerd when it came down to I was total geek about anything, biology, physiology. Like if I had this one client that was total genius, and it was the only client that ever asked me about the Krebs cycle and to break down the energy cycle for him. I'm like, you really want to know? Well, let me tell you. Let's go. I was such a geek about it. And things were so good. I mean, look, I had been divorced. I was a single mom for a long time. My oldest daughter saw me. I mean, I had like this tiny 1-bedroom apartment with a futon and a crib I was able to buy my first house.
Yeah.
I've had naysayers, like basically that I'm so grateful for my whole life because that motivated me.
Totally.
I'll never forget, my first love, my first boyfriend came to LA and I was a single mom and he came to LA for some reason for business or something. And he used to say, you want to be a dancer? Like, get a real job. And then he had asked me what was I doing, I said, oh, I'm a fitness instructor. I'm a fitness trainer, certified by NSCA, which at the time that was like the highest certification you could get. It's like, why don't you get a real job? Like, what? And you're going to go to a gym and work out? Like, why don't you do some work around the house, like some real work outside, And so it was just constantly.
Yeah.
And he came over and he saw the house that I bought. And it was probably the nicest thing that he ever said to me. He goes, wow, how much did you pay for this? And I told him, he goes, this is worth more than all 3 of my properties in Texas. And I was like, huh. And being in the fitness industry wasn't a real job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
But I loved it. And finally met.
What did you love most about it?
I loved being able to see the transformation in people's lives. That's what I loved. I mean, not just their bodies, but their whole being. Mm-hmm. And, I look at when I was little, I mean, I was like 6 years old, 7 years. I was little when it started, but I decided to put together a club with my girl cousins because the guys would pick on us. And so I said, you know what? We got our own club and we're called the Super Chicks. And we would meet in the chicken coop and I made t-shirts for us and they had little fuzzy chicks and at red letters, velvet letters, it said Super Chicks. And I loved empowering others. And they're like, yeah, they're not picking on us. And we would like make these big plans. And then it went from that to when I was 13, I went under the wing of my dance instructor who taught me everything to teach about being a dance instructor, the business side of running a business. When I was 18, moved to LA, I decided, I got a job. I got 4 jobs in the first 2 weeks that I was there. 2 of them were at this one dance studio. One was like an hour away from the other one. And then another one was at another restaurant and 2 different restaurants, 2 different studios. And there was a group of women. And at the time it seemed older, but now I look back, I'm like, that was young, but they were the youngest from 65 all the way to 85. And they wanted to do a performance at their country club. They wanted to do a tap dance. And so they enrolled in classes and I went to teach them. They ended up liking it so much. They said, can you continue to teach us? So I taught these ladies and I said, I have a good idea. Why don't we take this on the road? Here I was, 18 years old. I organized my own dance company. I took these ladies and we went to all the nursing homes in the area and we used to perform. And it would just light these people up. Again, the transformation is what I love. Empowering. First I saw them. They just became empowered. Yep. They were dancing. They were just lit up with joy. Mm-hmm. Then they got that and it was the ripple effect that they were able to go and perform at these, and I haven't told that story. I don't think I've ever told that story on a podcast before, but then I got to see that when I was training clients. And I trained bodybuilders for competitions who completely transformed their lives. And so that's what I'd always done. And then, I had a great life, good husband, 2 healthy kids, and in the blink of an eye, all gone. I mean, coming home from work on my motorcycle and see this SUV. And I'm like, I thought he saw me. I'm like, well, I guess he doesn't see me. And he shot it out of a parking lot So it wasn't like it was slowly drive. It was like punch. I fly 30 feet and then I'm sliding across the asphalt. Thank God I had my husband's brand new backpack. One of the first thoughts I thought when I came to a stop, and I was afraid to let go of my leg because I looked down at it only once and there was just blood everywhere. And it's crazy as you can relate to looking and seeing your arm not attached to your body. My foot was only attached by the skin.
Yeah.
I didn't know my femoral artery was severed at the time, and you can bleed out pretty quick from that.
Very.
And my leg was into pieces. And one of the first thoughts I had was, oh man, my husband's going to be pissed. I got his brand new backpack on. That backpack saved my life because it was completely shredded. Had I not had that, my whole spine, my spine, it would have shredded me down to my spine. Then I thought, oh, this can't be good. I might have to train clients on crutches for a while. I had no idea how it was going to change the trajectory of my life just like that. Get in the ambulance and I am squeezing the paramedic's leg so hard and I want eye contact and he wouldn't make eye contact with me. Yeah, it was insane.
You're squeezing the paramedic's leg.
They wouldn't look at me.
Mm.
And I'm like, why aren't they looking at me? Aren't they going to look at me and assure me that I'm going to be okay? Then I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm dying because they will not make eye contact with me. And maybe they just know it's because I'm going to be dead. And then I'm like, oh, I wish I would die because the pain was so excruciating. I was hyper alert. And I see them, this is crazy. They start trying to cut my jacket off. I'm taped to a gurney. I'm like, whoa, wait, that's a brand new Lululemon jacket. Like, don't cut it. I can get it off. Even though I'm in excruciating pain, I'm like, this is my brand new jacket. Yeah. So I'm like, I can get it off. And I start wiggling around and I only had a sports bra underneath. And I know they thought she's insane. Like she's crazy. Then they start.
You also were like in the middle of trauma too. And sometimes we don't always operate totally coherent. Like, let's just go.
I was like, oh, it's fine. Let me save the jacket. Little did I know the jacket was shredded.
Yeah.
You know, not on my back, but the whole shoulders. I mean, I had, even through the jacket, I had road rash on my shoulder. So
I believe that.
Then they start prepping an IV and I'm like, whoa, what are you giving me? Oh, we're giving you morphine. I said, I can't have that. I'm allergic to morphine. Well, what happens? I go into anaphylactic shock. They're like, oh, well, we don't have anything else for pain. I said, well, let's go faster to the hospital. Yeah. They put me in induced coma. And that's the last thing I remember, before, my husband was there. He was hysterical. And I'd yelled across the ER. I thought, I don't know if I'm going to wake up from this. But he's freaking out and I need to know he's going to be okay for our kids. I was like, honey, get over here. I need you to be strong for me. And the whole room went quiet. I went back to the hospital later to find the nurse that leaned over me and said, we're going to give you something to make you feel a lot better now. It was like she was an angel and she gave me the first sense of it's going to be okay. I went back to her to tell her thank you when I was out of the hospital. This is months later, 4 months later, when I was finally released from the hospital, went to go thank her. And she said, oh, girl, we knew what we were dealing with when you yelled across that room, get over here and be strong for me. She goes, we knew what we were dealing with and we went to work, and I was like, when I woke up out of a coma, the first thing I learned was I had a 1% chance of saving my leg from amputation. And in that moment, they were talking, all I heard was 1% chance. And that showed me I had a chance. Yeah. And that was my glimmer of hope that I hung on to. And it got me through 34 surgeries in total. But who's counting, And they saved my leg.
I think I've had 24. You beat me out.
Well, it's going to be 35 soon, but
Yeah. Well, I know. You're just, you got to win. I get it. It's okay. You won. Your scars are cooler. It's okay. Yeah. I'm totally kidding. I'm not going to go too deep on this portion of my story, but when I had rebroken my arm at 20, I experienced a lot of that stuff as an adult that I didn't have the opportunity to do when I was 7. Meaning having to be coherent, keep peace of mind, process and reason and try to make contact and like not know what it is and not freak out and not take pain meds that are going to make me not like able to be present. Right. And like field setting the bone and like doing things like that just are excruciatingly painful with no pain meds. Right. Like you did. The power of the mind is like ridiculous in those moments. When did you realize how extreme it was?
I think so I got transferred to a different hospital. My husband signed papers saying basically don't touch her to the doctor. You're not cutting her leg off. And actually when I was in a coma, they wanted to go ahead and cut it off. And he said, you're not cutting her leg off. I want her to wake up out of a coma.
Needs to be her choice. Yeah.
I want her to wake up.
Fuck yeah for your husband, by the way. Like, oh my God, that's amazing. I met him. I could feel that, but like, that's powerful.
He was like, I want that to be her decision. I want her to wake up with both of her legs. And yeah, he's amazing. For a long time, he doesn't do this anymore because I told him to stop, but he'd be like, do you know you have both of your legs because of me? Because of me, you've got 2 legs.
I mean, you do owe him forever.
I know.
I kind of take his side on this. I'm just like, I love you, but like he did because they would have not been there without him.
Oh, and
so, you know, just remember that, right?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But
seriously.
But still though, like the seriousness of that, I want to pause because especially with everything going on in the world and men believing that they have a right to have a word or a say or any level of control over any woman in general, especially her body. Like for him to have existed in that place with such certainty, knowing you'd want the choice, knowing what you'd have to go through if it wasn't your choice, right? Like understanding like that it's not his choice, no matter the fact that you're married or not. Like there's a lot. I just wanted to pause, and this is not to take away from you. No. It's to say that is like, that says a lot about him as a man and him as a partner to you. And that's really fucking cool. I just really wanted, and hopefully he can see this part because like, that's awesome. And like, fuck yeah for like making sure that you know that you owe your leg to him.
Yeah.
But like,
no, but he is awesome and he's a protector. And then before I was coming here, because I'm like, you know, a girl thing, figuring out outfits. What am I going to wear on stage? What I'm going to wear for the VIP thing? What I'm going to wear, you know? And I call him, I'm like, honey, you're my image consultant because he would tell me that what I love is he is brutally honest and he tells me the truth and he'll be like, that outfit does not look good on you. Or yes, that is it. That's command presence if you wear that. Like he's really good about
I love it.
Telling me like yes or no, but even to the point of, so I was given this keynote in this city and I had found out that there was a 2-day event and the first day their keynote speaker was an astronaut. I'm like, oh, an astronaut has landed and that's their keynote speaker. And then, oh, hi, I'm your keynote speaker for tomorrow. And so I'm just, you know, I just kind of, maybe I say too much sometimes, but I was like doing a story on social media. I was like, oh, just found out today's keynote or what, like they're an astronaut. And now I was like, wish me luck. And he called me and I was like, hey, I am just getting in the Uber. And he's, you know what, call me when you get to your hotel. I'm like, well, is everything okay? He goes, I said, tell me now. He goes, you need to take that shit down. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, in your story. He goes, well, he goes, look, Amberly, I know you're humble. He goes, but that's not confident. He goes, I don't care if you feel that way. He's like, you deserve to be on that stage and you do not ever say that again. Like that. No, you go up there. He goes, and he loves John and Catherine. Like,
yeah.
And he's like, do you think that John Gordon would be saying that? No, John Gordon would not be saying that. He would be saying, I'm going to go up there and I'm going to crush it. And I'm like, okay. Thank you. Okay. Let me get off the phone. I'm going to take it down now. But yeah, he's very protective of me.
And the irony in that is I know without even having been there that you were the one that blew the audience out of this world, not the astronaut.
Well, thank you.
I just know this.
There's this one guy because it was mostly men in the audience, which usually, I don't know. I connect with men very well too, but a lot of times the women are really connect more, and it was like mostly men. And this guy was sitting down, and I was walking back up to do some Q&A, and the guy goes, come here. He goes, I have to tell you, we've had a lot of speakers, and I go to a lot. He goes, I related to you. I got more out of yours. I thought you were the best. And I was like, really? Are you serious? I was like, can you please tell the owners of the company that? He goes, yeah, I'll tell them. But at first I thought he was just saying that, but then he got very specific on things that I said. And I was like, thank you. But it's the things in my head. And I think so often it comes down to not feeling good enough or not feeling worthy enough, and letting that inner critic and that inner bully come out, when it's like, no, I have to remember how far I've come and how much I've accomplished and how much I've built from scratch and how gritty I've gotten and the grace I've had to give myself and all of that. But, my husband's a great guy, and he's now, I did hire him on. I was like, you're my BS detector. Cause he goes,
that's what Ashley is for me.
Yeah, he's like, I have never seen so much BS in my life in the industry that you're in. So he's like my BS detector. And also now I say, well, you're my image consultant. I was getting ready to leave, and I said, I decided I'm going to wear this on stage. He goes, well, fine, whatever you feel.
Yeah.
And he's like, I said, no,
you're
my image consultant. He goes, well, go try it on,
I love it. Our ADD could take us in a whole bunch of different directions. And I took a deep, powerful question about when you knew how serious it was. And then we went, which is totally, but that is a loop I want to close for a second, because I want to bring some clarity to this story.
How did I know it was so serious?
When was the moment that you knew how serious it was?
Because when I got transferred to the other Cedars-Sinai, which it's the best hospital in Los Angeles, one doctor we found who was a trauma specialist that was willing to take a chance on me. And he was supposed to come in and see me on a Monday. On a Sunday night, this man walks in my hospital room, and he's got on a beige suit. And I look at the name tag, and it says D. Wiss. And I grabbed his hands and just started crying. And I said, you're the doctor. You're the one who's going to save my leg. Thank you. Thank you for being willing to save my leg. And he goes, well, he probably thought, this lady's crazy. Because I was just clinging, you're the one who's going to save it.
Well, and that's probably exactly how it felt.
And he said, well, we're going to get in there tomorrow. And he didn't have to come in on a Sunday night on his night off. He came in on a Sunday night. And he said, well, tomorrow we're going to get in there and we're going to clean it all up, and I'm going to see what I can do.
Right.
I don't know what I can do, but we're going to see what I can do. And that Dr. Wiss, he's in my book. I'm actually in his book. He said I was the most difficult case he's ever worked on.
I have no doubt.
But he saved it. And he also changed my life in more than just saving my leg. It was probably almost a year after my accident, and the pain was so unbearable. I'd been diagnosed with CRPS, doing all these treatments, ketamine infusions, spinal radio frequency. Eastern, Western medicine.
Yeah.
I was trying all of it, And I finally was like, I got the solution. I need to cut it off. And so I go to Dr. Wiss, and I was like, hey, thank you for doing 34 surgeries to save my leg, but it's giving me too much pain. I need to move on with my life, and we need to just go ahead and cut it off. And he goes,
I don't think you ever told me that. Wow.
I was like, we need to cut it off. And he goes, we can't do that. I'm like, what do you mean we can't do it? I'm like, nope, cut it off. And he's like, you've got CRPS. It could make it worse. It could make it spread. And then what he did that changed my life was he sat down in front of me and he put my leg in his lap. And I still get emotional about this, because I thought, wow, he's putting my ugly, disgusting leg on his nice white coat, because I hated it. And then he looked at it like it was a masterpiece. Like he touched my leg and he looked at it like, wow, it's a masterpiece. He saved it 1%. He saved it. And here I am asking to have it cut off. And in that moment, I cried in that moment. And I thought, wow, if he can look at it that way, maybe I can learn to look at it that way too. And that's what started to shift everything. And once I was able to get an acceptance and start to slowly love it and look down at my scars as, wow, look at how amazing the human body is and how it can heal and adapt and how resilient we are and how amazing the human spirit and how powerful the human spirit is. That's when things started to change. And I started to think, you know what? I want to be an example of resilience for my daughters. I want to show them that I am in acceptance for these scars, not only in acceptance, but I actually love them now. And, there was a time, my youngest daughter, a horse crazy girl, she loves horses. And she has their own little, community of horse crazy girls. And she's got her horse. And if she wasn't riding a horse, she'd pretend to be like a horse. And she was running around and pretending she was a horse doing jumps, and she hit this cement bench and her leg was just like open. We had to go to the ER and she had to get stitches, and we go to the doctor to get the stitches out. And he goes, well, he was an older doctor, and he looked at her and he said, well, I imagine with scar like this, your modeling days are probably over. And she goes, well, I don't care about this scar and I don't want to be a model. I want to be a horseback rider when I grow up. And I was like, imagine if I put so much shame and tried to cover up and I didn't accept what I looked like. We are walking permission slips 100%. For others to love themselves, to be in acceptance.
I completely agree. I mean, I literally say that's my reason for existence now, is to allow my truth to give others permission to live theirs. Like, that's what I believe I exist for, right? But you also took that lesson, and even the way this whole conversation started was around the beauty of my arm, right? And like, you have the ability to see the beauty in it and in it for other people, right? And that was a time that you couldn't, just like I had many times that I couldn't. I know that was the turning point. How long did it take you before you saw the beauty in it?
It took me, because even after that, like I knew it was serious, and going through the hospital, and I would have a surgery, then a day of recovery and a surgery, and sometimes I'd have a surgery one day, then the next day. Then when I got out of the hospital and diagnosed with complex regional pain syndrome and going through all these treatments that weren't working, finally was like, okay, well, third doctor diagnosed me. I went to 3 different doctors. I did not want to admit or accept that I had this nerve disease. When I was like, okay, starting to accept the scars, but still couldn't accept the pain, I started drinking and I became an alcoholic, which, talk about shame.
Yeah.
I went from an elite athlete who was never a party, who was always career focused. I was like, I am not like the addicts in my family. What I learned is addiction doesn't discriminate. Doesn't matter.
Does not.
How old, young, male, female, what race you are, how you grew up, how much money you had, how smart you are. Doesn't matter. Addiction does not discriminate. And because I couldn't really see the beauty in the scars yet, it took me a long time to do that. I was in denial about, the nerve disease, and nothing was working, and wine was helping. But it wasn't until I got sober in 2016 and really began to take my life back and really heal from a lot of trauma, not just from the motorcycle accident, but trauma that I had been running from my whole life.
It's the scars on the inside that we can't see, right? Like it because it happens, right?
Yep.
We see the scars we wear on the outside, but most people, you never see the scars on the inside.
Sometimes
and that's the stuff
I think
that needs
the
to heal.
scars on the inside are harder.
They are way harder to heal. They are way harder to get to. They're way harder to access completely.
They're buried down so far. Sometimes you've kept a lid screwed so tight on that. You don't want that lid to come off.
I mean, you know the name of the show. It's Flipping the Lid.
And that's a wrap.
That's like yes. It's exactly right.
Yeah.
Like, and you're doing it, and you do it still, and you're finding ways to continue to channel the energy into a place that's getting you closer to who you are and what you want every day. And you bring people along with you.
Well, I want to bring people along with me because that's what's
which
truly
isn't because
fulfilling.
of the injury. You already talked about transformation was your favorite part of interacting with people in every aspect of your life.
Well,
and it just gets better and more purposeful and more directed, right?
Yeah. And when I tried to get back to training clients, and it was really killing me. It was so painful to be on my feet all day and trying to act like I'm not in pain and lifting a 50-pound dumbbell to hand for, chest press for the guys I was training here. I mean, I'm surprised actually I did break the metal in my leg, titanium.
Of course you did.
But
of course you did.
They had to take it.
But you found the limit, right?
I found the limit. And now I have a cool wind chime that's made out of titanium that hangs right outside my office. So there you go.
Oh, have you seen The Good Place?
No.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I just have to get you're just distracted by what you just said. There's a character on the show that I can't describe all the context of it, but he's basically like a creation from an all-knowing, like, for lack of a better term, kind of robot being. But they can only get it so right. And so when he was brought into the world, like, the only defectiveness that he had is that his genitals are wind chimes.
Where do you find this stuff?
No, like, the show is like, it's actually a really well-written, intelligent show. There's like so many nuances like of humanity embedded in it. And it's literally The Good Place. It's like heaven. So it's like this whole like dichotomy of like people getting into heaven and like what it looks like. And it's a really cool story. But when you said wind chimes, like, the 12-year-old in me was like, oh, wind chime genitals. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's not what you meant.
Well, it was funny when I went in, I went into the doctor and I said, well, something's wrong. And he goes, what? And I said, well, I have a lot of pain, but it's more than usual. And every time I walk, my leg bows out. And he goes, what do you mean? And I took my knee and I took my ankle and I said, well, I mean this. And I bent.
Oh,
where you're not supposed to be able to bend it. And I'm like, see? And he goes,
you and I are so much alike.
He goes, oh, let's do an x-ray. And he comes back in and he goes, well, you actually broke the titanium. And my husband goes, how do you break titanium? Isn't it the strongest metal in the world? And I was thinking, well, can you just put a cast on it? He goes, oh, no, this is a surgery. It was a 12-hour surgery where he had to take the broken pieces out and put a rod in. Only there's so much stuff in my lower leg. He couldn't just slide a rod in. He tried to get it in here, couldn't get it in. So he had to go above my kneecap, underneath my knee with this rod. And it was a 12-hour surgery. And then they couldn't close my leg up. It was so swollen. So I had to wear a wound vac on it for like 4 days. And then they did another surgery to close it up. And he said, well, we didn't have enough skin to close it up completely. Do you want to do a skin graft, or it's going to take a long time and you're going to have to, change the gauze daily or hourly sometimes? And I said, no, I don't want another skin graft. I said, let's just let it heal. And it did. That was right there. It closed up. But I kept calling pathology and saying, I need that metal. They're like, oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. The third time I call, I said, hey, look, I paid $62,000 for the metal in my leg and I want it. Finally, I think they got sick of dealing with me. They bring me a bag and it's filled with metal pieces and broken screws. And I'm like, cool, I'm going to make some bracelets for me and Savannah and Ruby, my daughters. So by the time I finally get out of the hospital, I was there for 2 weeks that time for that surgery. I go to a local jeweler. I said, hey, I want to make some matching bracelets. They'd be like Wonder Woman bracelets, you know? He said, this is titanium. We can't bend it. I said, well, I broke it. You can't bend it? So that's when I decided to make a wind chime.
Okay, well, you got me like really curious on the whole jewelry thing, and then now I know that it's not possible. But I have almost all of the hardware that was in my arm over the years.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, all the early surgeons saved it. My parents asked for it. My mom like stored it all. Like I have all of it from the early 90s, right? The pins they removed, the wires they had to remove, the plates they removed or had to replace.
Have my pins.
Yeah,
now
I've got a couple pins that are like this long that were driven all the way through the arm.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean similar to what you do in the lower leg. So, yeah.
When I broke my wrist, so I was on crutches for my leg.
Yeah.
And I thought I was a little too cocky coming down the stairs on my crutches. Like, I don't need to hold the rail. I got this. And I'm booking it. And the crutch got stuck in the carpet and I got catapulted forward and put my arm out, break my wrist. I'm talking, it's not just a little hairline fracture. It's like this. And
it's a fucking lesson in ego, isn't it?
like, oh, you think you're good on those crutches? Let me show you. My oldest daughter comes down. She hears the fall. She comes down and she goes, and she was young. She was like 13 or 14. And she goes, oh, I said, I'm holding my arm like, it's okay. I said, you know what? We need to call. I said, call daddy. I need to go to the hospital and get this fixed. And she goes, holy shit. I'm like, no, it's okay. She goes, holy shit, Mom. It's not okay. It's broken. And I'm like, oh, okay. Can you call? And I'm very calm.
I get it. Totally.
So my husband.
Well, the thing is, after that, like, that's nothing. So it's like,
that's nothing.
It's like,
so Johnny comes home, he walks in the door and I'm hiding my wrist. I'm like, yeah, can you take me to the ER? And he's like, what's wrong? I said, oh, I broke my wrist. He goes, let me see. I said, no.
It's better if you don't.
It's really not good. So I pull it out and it's like flopped over and he goes, oh man. Like he was just like pissed. He's been in and out of the hospital and now you got to break your wrist. Yeah. And I'll never forget. So they couldn't just put a cast on it. They had to do surgery and put pins in it. And so I was scheduled for surgery and I'm walking into the hospital and I could barely walk. And I'm like walking like this because my leg's still broken. Yeah. I'm walking on basically metal and that's it. It was a non-union.
Right.
And my arm, they had put a temporary cast from here that went all the way up. And I'm walking in and this guy goes, geez, what happened to you? I said, oh, motorcycle accident. He goes, oh, yeah, man. I was on a motorcycle once and I broke my pinky. And that was it for me. And I was like, yeah, dude, I'm glad your pinky's okay. And I'll continue to
That's so hilarious. Like, I can find the humor in it only because of how much I relate to so many pieces of that. Like, we can swap stories for days because, like,
other people would be like, oh gosh. And you and I are like, oh, that's happened to me too.
Dude, like I if I haven't at some point I will. I'm not going to do it right now, but dude, I got to tell you about like my ER story in Atlanta last summer. It was nuts. And it was like totally that, like, I like didn't really want to call Ashley because I knew she'd like make me want to go to the hospital. Like, I'm like and it was actually like really bad, but I like, don't feel pain when I choose not to. So it's just, well, like, but our tolerance, like that's the other thing that I think most people don't understand is there are thresholds of pain. And when you get to the extreme levels of pain, like that pain meds don't touch.
They don't touch. Right? And then I start throwing up though.
I mean, like it is like, it's visceral, like life or death kind of pain.
Uh-huh.
Once you've experienced that and you live with pain consistently on a daily basis.
Your threshold.
Like, when
you can deal with a lot.
When I say like, there have been situations and times where like, I have to like remind people like who are getting in my face, like I don't feel pain when I choose not to.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, if you want to come at me, attack me, like I have to let you know, like it's not gonna probably end in a way that you think it is, because there's a level at which we can go to that's like, it doesn't exist. And so you're demonstrating that through all your stories. And though you feel it, like you're also highly present in every story, right? It's not that you were out of it. You were total. It's like, no, I'm like regulating my daughter and her 13-year-old freak out, and my husband who like knows that I'm a train wreck and I'm always getting in, you know, in hurt situations. Like,
oh, there was one time I fell back on my crutches. So I'm going up the stairs and I was like, whoa, and went back. And we had this landing and I hit the wall. My back hit the wall and I landed just in a way in between the studs. And so, or the, you know, the wood, I hit the drywall. There was,
did you break the drywall? A body?
And there was the shape of my back. And Johnny comes up and he goes, oh my God.
I'm surprised he didn't like try to wrap you in bubble wrap at some point.
He's
like,
told me he would. He goes, oh my God. And he ran outside because he thought I busted a hole through the entire house. And don't you know, I was so embarrassed of that. He goes, no, let's leave it to remind you that you've got to be more careful. And I'm like, I called a friend that was a contractor. I'm like, I need you to get over here quick. I don't want to see
what happened. Don't ask questions. It looks like a body went through the wall. I don't know what to tell you. I said, don't ask questions.
Yeah.
Just fix the fucking drywall.
Yeah. Just fix that. Just get it fixed. Yeah, but I didn't have a bruise on me from that one.
Or that you acknowledged at any kind of pain threshold. Like,
that I acknowledged.
You probably had pain, like little bruises all over the back of you, but you like didn't look in the mirror.
I was like, I don't want to see it.
I don't feel the pain. It's okay.
Yeah. Just not that long ago, my daughter and I were wrestling, and I'm just not as steady on my feet as I used to be. And especially when your toes are made of metal. Yeah. And we were wrestling, horsing around, and she's gotten strong. She's the same height as me, and she is strong. And I got off balance, and I went headfirst into the coffee table. This was just the other day. No.
You don't have an off switch. Well, let me put it this way. You don't have a dimmer switch. You are on or off, just like me. Yeah. It's like.
Yep, that's right. That's right. And I get up, and there's blood.
I love that you're like wrestling with your like near adult daughter, and like you're like, I'm gonna fucking win so much that you end up in a coffee table. Like, I totally get it.
Split open, and she's like, oh, Mom, there's blood. And I'm like, oh God. I was like, get the super glue. I swear. Get the super glue. She goes, oh, Mom, no, there's a lot of blood. And I'm like, well, we have super glue. Just go grab it. And Johnny comes over and he goes, oh my God, Amberly, no, your head is split open. I have to take you.
Yeah, like you need to go to the emergency room.
He's
you
like,
need stitches.
I said, well, I'll just go to urgent care. He goes, no, we need to go to the ER because there will be a real doctor.
It's your face.
It's your face. So yeah, I get to the ER. 9 stitches later, 2 black eyes. They had to glue part of my nose back together. 9 stitches here. And then afterwards, Ruby was like, oh, that's going to scar. You're not going to have any eyebrows right there. Well, what the hell? What's another scar?
But like, honestly, right? Like, that's where I'm at. And that's where I'm able to now see the beauty. And I would say that it's been progression, but like truly, like the scars tell stories. And I literally say like the scars are the stories that were chosen for me, and the tattoos are the stories I chose for myself.
I love that.
And it's like the contrast for me is a constant reminder that it's like, yep, we're going to have stories that fit into both categories. And
should I get my left leg?
You could. I don't know.
People told me to get this leg tatted up.
I don't know if I'll ever put more ink on my left arm than this. I think this is all I need. It's all I want. And I actually like the contrast of the story.
I do too.
The scars,
I
right?
do too.
And it's like this dichotomy. We talked about it on your podcast. It's like that used to only look here.
Now
they like don't know where to look, right? Like it's this weird calibration. But yeah, the scars tell stories. And like it's funny because like I truly like to do like scar battles with people sometimes. Like not like truly competitive, but like I'm like,
show me this
let me
one.
see that. Like I want to see like how did it scar up? Like, oh, you had skin grafts. Like, oh, cool. Like, can you see like the checker marks in it? Like,
yeah,
like all of it, right? It's like they all heal different, right? They all look different, but they all have a story. And there is no perfect fixing of it, even though our bodies are these spare parts bins, right? So it's like, I love that you talked about, though, the difference in the contrast of the scars on the inside and the scars on the outside. Because despite whatever happens, all these traumas, all these things, all these narratives that we carry, right? Like we do get to a place where we can choose.
Yeah.
And we can choose to like walk a path that takes us closer to who we are and who we want to become. We can choose to start to open ourselves to the possibility of receiving of joy. Right. And I know that this is now like this next evolution of even what you're stepping into and teaching is like the pain to purpose has been a lot of your message and your story. It's the foundation in so many ways that'll shape it. But you're also now, as am I, actually starting to be able to shift those components of the story into like the other side of it.
Yeah.
Right. And helping people actually step to the other side with the understanding and perspective that like we know the contrast and the difference in lived experience. And so you just wrote this other book. You talked about it. You had like a crazy year.
I wrote the book in the middle of probably one of the hardest health challenges. Like I wrote a book about joy.
So I want to ask a question before I jump into the book on joy. Cause you also said that it was like one of the hardest health years, right? Some of the most pain, some of the most resistance. And, you're doing things at a very big level. You're speaking on lots of stages. I've witnessed you transform women in your mastermind and communities. I see how you show up for other people, right? There's elements that you're doing more for others or more for things that weren't in alignment in periods. You're like all this pressure. I'm curious in the midst of one of the hardest health years, if you look back on it now, how much of it was you putting pressure to perform or to be and show up a certain way versus it was like what percentage of your time in the year was that focus? And the second piece to that is if you look at living into alignment with the things that bring you joy, where were you at in the year that you were writing all of this, right? Like those two things I would really like to understand before we jump into the book, because hardest year, biggest health challenges, and there was a lot of pressure, right? So like how much of that was your perceived or self pressure to perform?
Well, there was a lot of frustration and a lot of disappointment because I had flown out of the country to try yet another treatment that went radically wrong. And don't like to have expectations, but I had expectations of being,
I get it,
and feeling superhuman. And it was the complete opposite. And I couldn't even walk. So I was back in a wheelchair. So
was it like a stem cell something somewhere?
And it was stem cell. And I told them afterwards, I woke up out of surgery screaming because with CRPS, I mean, I have to wear a certain brand of shoes.
Right.
I have, most people travel 1, maybe 2 pair of shoes. I've got 5 pair of shoes with me because I never know
which ones are going to feel
which ones. Yeah. And I tried on 3 different shoes this morning. I'm like, guess it's going to be these today.
It does work though, because you also pack multiple outfits. So at least you have plenty of options too.
I've got backup.
See, you adjust all the way around.
But
yeah, 5 pairs of shoes.
Yeah. But imagine how sensitive, like a lot of times people like to go get a pedicure. I dread it because of the pain. That my leg is so overly sensitive that, the guy's drying my foot off with a towel and I jump and he jumps back and I'm like, this leg is just all out of whack with the nerves. And so imagine how sensitive it is. And even though I'm under anesthesia, there's a million needles going in where my leg is the most sensitive. And I woke up, the flare up was probably the worst I think it's ever been. But I couldn't walk. I as much as I even tried to walk, I could not walk because I couldn't even, it was like a knife going into my ankle every time I would take a step. And so to get back to the airport, I had two suitcases, and I was using that as kind of crutches. And I guess I must have looked so bad that the lady behind the counter looked at me and says, don't move. I'm going to get you a wheelchair. And there was something that symbolized when I had to get in that wheelchair, I just started crying. And nothing against wheelchairs. My little brother's been in a wheelchair his whole life.
But on the tail end of what you've gone through and your ability to walk again in an attempt to make it better, it feels like you're going backwards.
It felt like a huge step back. And I had to right then in the moment use some of the tools that I've learned through this process, which was, Amberly, be grateful that you're in a foreign country. This guy that's pushing your wheelchair doesn't even speak. Y'all don't speak the same language, but he's got kind eyes and he's smiling and he's pushing you all the way to where you're going to get on the plane and you're going to be home and it's going to be okay. I had to use the tools of gratitude and like mindset shifts the whole way. I was in so much pain on that airplane getting home. And I mean, I got a high tolerance to pain. I had tears running down my face. It was so painful. And it was hard. And that's what really kind of led to the setback. And it's taken me a long time to get back down to a base that I can live with. And it was frustrating because I'm like, I got things to do. I got people to see. I mean, the very next week I was going on Ed Milet's podcast. And I was like, I pictured walking into Ed Milet's studio, walking in. And then I was like, you know what? I don't care. If I have to crawl,
I remember you telling that to me before.
I will get there and I'm going to do it. And, but it was, emotionally hard, physically hard. I had more pressure on me, traveling more. There's a lot of pressure writing a book when you've got deadlines. So I think, yes, it all
mixed up.
It all got mixed up. And it was when I was in the middle of writing my book that I was like, I cannot write a book about joy if I don't spark some joy in my life. And I have had an opportunity since I've written this to practice everything that I put, because it's a book where it's not like my first book where it was a memoir meant to inspire. This is a self-help book on how to embrace the present moment and cultivate resilience and shift your mindset. And there's actionable steps in it. And sometimes I feel like when you're doing something that it's big, it's like you're going to get an opportunity of resistance, of being tested, to really, it's an opportunity for you to go, okay, do you believe what you're teaching? And I'm like, well, thanks for that lesson. Yep. I believe it. It worked. And through every hard thing that I've gone through, from whether it's pain or pain from, we just lost our dog this year. It was my therapy dog.
So hard.
And I used everything that I've written in the book to help me get through that and spark joy.
Where do you find the most joy in your life?
Being around the people that I love and getting to connect on conversations that I love, being able to really use my strengths to help others with their success and them succeed. That's very fulfilling. It's very joyful for me. But I also find joy in, I still love to dance. And we were at dinner I took my youngest daughter with me to an event, and the host of the event took all the speakers out, and there were all these very high profile billionaire men. And then there was me and Ruby, and he goes, now, Ruby, what does your mom do that embarrasses you? And I'm like, oh. And she said, without hesitation, my mom dances all the time. Everywhere we go, in line at the market, down the aisle at the market, outside, in the kitchen. And it brings me joy. Yeah. It brings me joy. Working out in the gym. I listen to some gospel music on the way to the gym and AC/DC and Metallica when I'm in the gym. That brings me joy.
Yeah.
You know, it brings me joy when I get to really, and you helped me with this, because there was a moment that I was like, been doing the mastermind for 5 years now. This is it. I'm taking a break. And you're like, whoa, wait a minute. Whoa, hold back here. And you had like a come to Jesus talk with me, like, Amberly, I know how much you love seeing these women soar and seeing them win. And I just needed to be reminded of that. Like, what's not working? Well, let's don't do that. And let's focus on what's working and how we can make it better. And so, yeah, I mean, several of those women are here and they're so excited that they get to see you. We're having a mastermind dinner tonight and you're the guest of honor. And all the women are so excited that they get to see you again. Everybody fell in love with you when you came to speak at our mastermind retreat. And so, yeah, those things, you know, being in nature, there are times when I would find myself on a Zoom marathon and I'd be like, next Zoom, like here, just back to back. And I have learned to schedule times and create a joy ritual for myself. So it can change your whole entire day. Even if you take a 5-minute break, 5 minutes, and go outside, get some sun, take your shoes off, walk through the yard, or just, you know, take a walk around the block. When I couldn't walk, I would have, you know, my husband, I had him built a ramp for outside. And I would just go outside in my wheelchair and just sit in the sun or sit at night and look up at the stars. That brought me joy. Taking the breath, being in the present moment. So many things, but I really encourage, you know, people listening to think about what brings them joy. That's what changed my career and where I am now. Because when I decided I wasn't going to be a fitness trainer anymore, the thing that I asked myself first was, what brings me joy?
Right.
And I was like, well, I love working with people and seeing them soar. So, okay, let me go learn how to be a life coach and get certified to do that. That's when it was called.
I know. I got you.
Life coach.
Yeah.
Now it's more, you know, I do business coaching, but mostly for women who want to get on stages, write their book and do their podcast. And that brings me joy. I think it's important whether you just want to feel unstuck and you want to feel fulfilled, or you're sitting there going, I don't know what my purpose is and I don't know what I want to do with my life. Well, what brings you joy? And a lot of times it's tied to something that you've done when you were younger and you don't even realize that it's your gift, but it's your gift. It might come easy to you, but it's a gift and somebody needs to learn from that.
And you also have an ability to recognize when those gifts are wrapped with shame or things that are actually preventing that gift from coming out, because it's not just about learning to identify and recognize it. It's also about how to overcome the things that prevent your gift from being seen, prevent you from owning your gift. And you do this, you live this, you help people with this, you are a model and an example of this. And I think I really enjoy who you are. I'm grateful for who you are. I'm grateful to have you in my life. And there are so many things that are left to come that I know that we're going to be doing together that's going to be fun, epic, and impactful. I want to, just because we've been talking for a while and I know I'm going to have you back again, right? We can like collapse time and you and I could like talk probably for 8 hours and lose it,
I
right?
was like, you're like the friend that like, when, you know, I'm young and when I was young and we had slumber parties and we just stayed up all night.
Right.
And
like there are people that you can do that with, right? And you are somebody that I feel that way with for sure. And the resonance of our stories and similarities is just, it makes it easy. In a lot of respects, you've been doing this for your whole life, but I also believe that you're just getting started. And so,
thank you for that.
Yeah. But I also know that a lot of what you also teach, and even what you just said, is like, what do I want? What does bring me joy, right? And legacy is something that's really important for many of us that really care about impact, right? Like, I don't care about the recognition, but I do care about the legacy of what the impact looks like. If you bring this like really granular and really specific, and you were to look at what your legacy will be, what you want it to be, and you look at it through the lens of your daughter and how she would communicate your legacy and impact, what is that?
I think that who knows what my teenage daughter would think or say.
Well, what do you think she would say?
But I really love that I've been an example for my daughters to do anything and go after any big dream and accept themselves for who they are. And, you know, my oldest daughter is going to be a doctor. She's going to school at Yale, and she was only got a special award. The only one that got a special award at Yale. Now she's getting her PhD.
So awesome.
And my youngest daughter is not afraid to have an opinion and to speak up and share her and challenge people. And I mean, my husband's big, strong, tough guy who's very opinionated, and she will take him on, you know? And so I love that I've set an example for them to be in acceptance for who they are and to love themselves and to be resilient and get back up even when life knocks them down, and to really know that no matter what, they can have the life that they've always imagined.
What's really cool is through the lens of your daughter, you've not only lived that, it is happening, it's continuing to happen. All of that is true. But again, that is also what you do for all the women that you work with. Right? And so your legacy is largely who you are. And so if you just continue to kind of lean into the pieces that are natural, authentic, and real for you, like, I just know there's decades of impact left. And that doesn't mean you're going to be on stage that whole time. But it's really cool that you are in a spot that you're gaining clarity every day, and you're helping others gain clarity every day. And at the end of the day, why are we living this life if joy isn't a part of it? Like,
that's exactly right.
Like, why put up with all the pain, the chaos, the shit, the noise, the interference, unless we can find joy and freedom and fulfillment, and joy being probably one of the most important of all of it.
Well, this book is raw and real, and it's, I think, going to be shocking for a lot of people, because the introduction of the book is pretty hardcore. I don't hold back, and I'm sharing stuff I've never shared before. And it's like, oh, it's all going to be out there, and people are going to be like, oh, wow, I never would have imagined you like that.
Here's the beautiful part, though. When you release it, you're going to experience a level of freedom that you have yet to date. The stuff that hasn't been talked about, the stories that haven't been told, the elements that you haven't allowed yourself in moments to fully step into, or that you weren't ready to, right?
Yeah. Oh, I wasn't ready to.
Like, there is such freedom. It's literally one of the core concepts that I teach is that strong spine, soft front. It's like at the end of the movie 8 Mile, when Eminem goes through and he's like, yeah, I did do all this shit. I did grow up across the tracks. I did, right? And then he drops the mic.
Yeah.
And what is anybody going to say? Like, what do they have on him? Nothing. Because he's fully accepted and embodied all of the elements. All the
truth
stories,
will set you free. There's
bingo. That's it.
Yeah.
But like, that's what's really cool, is that, again, your truth is going to give others permission to live theirs. And you do that in every interaction you have. And that's just really cool.
Well, thank you. I love you.
I love you too. Thank you for being on the show.
I told you
I'm going to record something later. I think we're going to have do like another episode at some point as well, for sure. And again, I know this is happening. There's just more and more and more that we're going to be doing. You know, we're both speaking at Secret Knock coming up too.
Oh, I know. Greg called me when I was at the airport.
Like, we're both going to be there again. We're going to see each other in like another month, which is awesome.
I know. I'm so excited about that.
It's super cool.
What day are you speaking?
I don't know yet.
Oh, I think I'm speaking this first day.
I don't know. I'm.
He just called me yesterday.
Remember what we were just talking about, like time and dates and locations.
Yeah.
Like, even if he had told me, I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
So he's been we've been coordinating via text, but I don't know if I've gotten details. And I'm like, I've told him I'm planning to be there for the majority of the event. So, but fit me in wherever you want me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't.
And I'm like, I'm doing a book signing there. And I'm like, is 50 books enough? He goes, no, you better order a lot more than that. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, there's going to be a few hundred people there. Have you been to that event before?
I've spoken at it twice.
Okay. Yeah. They're going to like eat you up. They always do. That's great. All righty. Well, I'm going to say this. I'm going to do my intro later, but I am going to look here now because my great and beautiful, powerful, strong, smart, impactful friend, Amberly, just flipped her lid, jumped in, and we got to see the stories of resilience, the stories of pain. We saw real raw emotion come out in moments where defeat or other people's narratives or the lack of seeing beauty and joy in moments prevented Amberly from being able to fully experience what she's learning to today, right? But with a focus and an intent around transformation, with asking the right questions, with recognizing that the more we open ourselves to others, the more we can impact them, the more accessible we become, and therefore the more joy we also receive. It's all wrapped up in that story. So listen, learn, and all of it's possible for you as well, but it is going to require you to flip open your lid and scan your can.
What you can probably tell by now is that I love telling these stories, but what I love even more is the impact that's coming from them. You see, we're on a mission to impact over 1 billion lives as quickly as possible, but to do that, we need you. See, we believe that moved people move people. And so all I'm asking is if you've resonated, connected with any of the messaging, please consider commenting, sharing, leave a rating and review. Thank you so much for tuning into Flipping the Lid. And if you want more information on the show, how to become a guest, how to recommend a guest, or any of the other details, head over to flippingthelid.com. We'll see you there.